This is Mandatory Listening. I'm your host, Kent Mann. Each week, we sit down over a cup of coffee and discuss interesting topics in the world of the customer experience. Welcome back to Mandatory Listening. This is Kent Mann, and I am joined today by a ghost of Mandatory Listening's past, Dan Mann.
It's been a while.
It's been too long. Although the listeners may not perceive it that way, it's been a minute.
Have you been recording podcasts without me?
No, we have not. We haven't done that. Not at once.
I will tell you that Delta Airlines loves me right now. I think I'm cresting somewhere around 30,000 miles for last month, and maybe that much already for this month. So
yeah, you were gone for a week, came back for a day, left for another week, came back for a day, left for another week.
It's been that kind of, it's been all good, great
Yeah.
work, but at the same time, it's been a lot of time. When the pilot comes back during flight, goes, Dan, how's it going? It's been a few days since I saw you last.
Yeah.
You know, you may be traveling too much.
Yeah, it'll get you like, can I get you anything in particular? You've got when you get upgraded to first class, you've got the customized Dan Mann monogrammed blanket and pillow.
You know, it sounds pretty, it sounds fantastic when you hear it, but when you live on a plane like that, it's sort of like George Clooney in Up in the Air.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
You live in a plane in a hotel enough, and it gets real old real quick.
I've got all these accumulated miles and points on all these like Delta status and Marriott, and I don't have any time to use them for
Yeah.
free. In fact, I get free travel. I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, you want to sit at home and barbecue.
That's exactly what I want to do. So I'll gift them to somebody.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It works out for the ones nearest to you.
Yeah, well, it's been that kind of month for the Man Group because there was a period of time there, 2 weeks, where we had 4 of us on the road at that level at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's good news, but it's also been extraordinarily busy.
Yep, definitely. Well, it's good to have you back, and I'm sure our listeners missed you. If it's been, I'm not sure how long the delay will be, but since your last podcast, but I'm sure it's a few. So today, we're talking about hiring. We've mentioned this briefly in the past. We may have talked a few strategies, but today we're going to dedicate a few minutes to recruitment, finding the right people, the interview process, and how to keep those people and develop them. Right, Dan?
That's it, hiring. And in fact, for all of the other things we spend time talking about, if you're in business and you're working on training or developing compensation plans or coming up with a meaningful system for providing customer service, if you've got the wrong people on your team, you're fighting a lost battle, a losing battle. So finding the right people is job one.
Yeah, everything we've taught and preached has been revolving around the assumption that, oh yeah, you have people that want to learn and they want to get better, and this is a career for them. So what's step one? Let's talk about recruiting, or maybe how do you decide whether you've got some wrong people on your staff? Like it's time to make a hiring push.
I guess step one would be understanding that bringing the right people on and keeping the right people on your team has to be a 24-hour a day, 365-day a year job. It is not seasonal. It's not something that you wake up one day and say, hey, well, I've got to find the right people.
Yeah.
In fact, in our 3-day Man University Leadership Development course, we spend 1/3 of our time, one full day, on how to bring in the right team, how to hire the right team. And here's the reason why. If you're working with a staff that's underperforming or a staff that is not engaged in your vision or dream, your mission, then if you find yourself reluctant to replace those people by saying goodbye to the wrong people because you don't know how to hire the right people, you are stuck in a downward spiral that you're never going to come out of. So being effective and being good at hiring is the beginning of being able to say goodbye to the wrong people with confidence.
Yeah, breaking the assumption that, man, when I'm near them and when I'm coaching them and when I'm around, they're just so on it. They're such good employees. They're so nice. They're always doing everything, bringing in coffee for everyone. But these people may actually be the ones that when you're gone, you can't rely on. And so if 5 days a week when you're there, great, but the weekends or maybe on a Tuesday afternoon, you just see low performance, it may be time to realize that while the cat's away, the mice are going to play.
Well, the owner of the business or the manager, if that's who's listening to this, you have to have control over the customer experience that you're delivering. That means that people deliver that experience regardless of whether the manager is watching.
Right.
And so this is something we talk about a lot on this podcast. So the key to this is having the right people to do that. So this requires then a comprehensive approach, a systematic approach, a disciplined approach to hiring. Can't be accidental. It must be following a structure and a process. That's what we're going to talk about.
Interview today, hire, or work today?
Well, yeah, that's our local chicken restaurant has a sign out front that says, apply today, work today.
Yeah.
And if that's the nature of your business, then, expect high turnover. But that's not most of the folks that are listening to this podcast.
So is a sign out front that says now hiring, is that the key to recruitment?
No.
Are you sure? Does that help?
Unfortunately, putting a sign up and hoping to bring in good quality people is not the pathway.
Yeah.
Let's actually start, Kent, by talking about the one most important mistake that people make when it comes to hiring.
Is it hiring enthusiasts?
Well, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
If you're a run store, a bike store, an outdoor store, a fishing store, whatever you sell surfboards, you sell whatever you sell, and you just hire people that love that sport, that may not be bringing in good service people or good salespeople. It just brings in enthusiasts. Now, you do want enthusiasts. You do want people that are passionate about your product. But you've got to also bring in folks that are passionate about service, passionate about sales, and passionate about customers. That's important.
Generating revenue.
That's right.
We've talked about that a lot. Like you have to have the right people for the customer, but you also have to have the right people that want to make money and want to make the company money. And I think that the now hiring sign out front kind of gives that. It almost just puts off or sets a tone for the interview and the hire because you're only going to hire people or let people know you're hiring by a sign. So the only people who come into your store can apply for a job.
Yeah, and that actually the now hiring sign is indication of what actually is the biggest mistake people make. So hiring only enthusiasts who aren't interested in service is a mistake, but the biggest mistake that folks make in hiring is they only hire when they feel they need people or hiring out of desperation.
Yeah.
So if you're hiring because 2 people resigned and now you must urgently hire, I'm under pressure, I've got to hire, it's a Tuesday, I must hire a staff member because I want to take Saturday off. And if that's your strategy, you are going to make a mistake.
Yep.
Hiring out of desperation is the biggest mistake people make. And here's the way it looks. Let's say you've got a staff of 15 people, and a great employee walks in the door and says, "Are you guys looking? Are you hiring?" And your just rank and file sales associate is standing at the register and looks around and says, "No, we've got a full staff, so we're not hiring right now." Mm-hmm. That may have been your great employee. That might have been your next great manager. But somebody working on your sales floor who doesn't understand the overall big picture of what you're trying to do says, "No, we're not hiring." Yep. And that great employee, potential employee, walks out your door and goes somewhere else to work, leaving you with your moderate staff.
Yep.
Of those 15 people working for you, the question is, how many of them are great?
And then a week later, when an employee leaves or has to take it a vacation or something like that, you're looking around like, where's that guy who came in last week? I really need him.
Or worse,
I didn't get his number.
or worse, you didn't even know they came in.
Yeah.
As the owner or the manager, you didn't even know that happened.
And then you're saying, I can't find any good people.
Can't find good people. So here's the bottom line there. You're always looking for A players.
Yeah.
And if you do the math on your team, I'm going to guess most of you running a business have 30 or 40% of your staff is A players. 30 or 40% of your team are B players, and unfortunately, some of your staff are not A or B players.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank with what letter they are.
Yeah.
So if an A player comes in and applies, I would hire them because then it offers you an opportunity to no longer tolerate C and D player performance.
Yeah.
You can then, with confidence, say goodbye to the person who's a wrong fit for your organization and replace them with an A player who's a good fit for the organization. Now, this actually, I'm passionate about this because this is my story. The very first day I applied for a retail job, I walked into a back rack store in Memphis, Tennessee. And I was really wanting to work for Backrack. Backrack at the time was one of the great men's clothing companies in the country, about $100 million retailer and very successful. And I really wanted to be a part of that. So I put on a Backrack suit and I walked into the store to apply for a job. And I walked in and walked up to the woman who was standing behind the counter and says, "I'd like an application, please. Are you guys hiring?" And she goes, "Well, we're not hiring right now." "Well, okay, well, can I have an application? I can just leave it with you?" She goes, "Yeah, no need to fill out an application because we're not hiring right now." And I went, "Well, that's a shame." I said, could I take the application with me? She goes, "No, why don't you come back at Christmas? Maybe we'll be hiring some seasonal people." So I turned to walk out, and I got almost out the door, and I heard a voice from behind me, excuse me, and it was a guy. He's running as fast as he can. He says, were you applying for a job?" And I said, "Yeah, I was trying to apply for a job." And he says, Are you looking for full-time or part-time?" I said, "Well, I'd love full-time, but I'll take whatever you're offering." He says, "Come back in." Interviewed me, hired me, and I got the job. Now, the woman who told me they weren't hiring had just recently put in her 2-week notice and was on the way out the door. She didn't care about that business. Mm-hmm. And the manager did not even know I was applying. Now, I don't want to brag, but 6 years later, I was the vice president of that company. So I was a pretty good hire. And she was going to say no to me.
Yep.
Now, I wonder if, because we're not always if you're not always in hiring mode, I wonder how many good people come through your door that you say no to, no thank you to, and they could have been great for you. So we're always hiring and we're always looking for good talent.
Probably too many people do that. Walk out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first recruiting strategy is that you're looking for good people.
So you're always hiring, and you're always keeping your ducks in a row by having an organized documentation of all of your applicants at once.
Yeah.
Keep that professional. Keep it, no notes attached to it. Don't mess with it. That's the applicant's property. So you have to keep it unaltered, and then just put it in an organized list. So whenever you get in those emergency situations, you've got your favorites lined up, ready to call.
You've got the folks that you're looking at.
Yeah.
The second big and really important strategy for hiring is that the hiring process must, in fact, be a hiring process. What you need to do is you must conduct multiple interviews over an extended period of time using different people on your team.
Are you saying this for people who are going to work the sales floor as well as managers, or any part of your staff?
It's especially important for people that are on the sales floor because they're the front line. Yeah. They are the most important people in your organization because they are facing your customer.
I think we've talked about this in season 1, where the frontline people are the guardian of your company culture, because 90% of the time they're the ones outwardly projecting to the customer. So
yes, I'm using this same process for all members of my team. So it would look this way. I want to make sure I've got multiple people in my management group who are capable of conducting a quality interview. And then any candidate that would be interested in the job, they would experience 2 or 3 interviews, and maybe more depending on the role, 2 or 3 interviews over different days by different people. In other words, you don't bring 3 of your staff in to do an interview and sit them all in the room with the one candidate and interview them at the same time.
Yeah.
And in fact, I don't want to do an interview at 2, followed by a different interview with a different person at 3 o'clock, and a different interview with a different person at 4 o'clock. I'd rather schedule the interview for today, have another interview on Friday, and a third interview on Monday. Because what that does is it makes that candidate show up on time 3 different times. I can't, in an interview, determine whether someone's going to be timely. I can begin to see that by scheduling meetings and see whether they come in on time. That's a little bit of a precursor to what they would be like. And it lets me see them present themselves 3 different times in 3 different outfits, talking to 3 different people. Mm. And in doing that, I've got a better chance of actually learning what they would actually be like in life.
Why? Why give them real-time examples? I mean, I can ask you, Dan, how important is it for you to show up on time? I find it to be very important to show up on time, and I've always shown up on time.
Yeah, and that's
and then you think like, oh, this person really really believes in showing up on time. And then a week later, they've decided to show up 15 minutes late.
And so that's why I want, in the interview process itself, I want to determine whether or not they tend to be timely.
Yeah.
And how do they dress? How do they present themselves?
Something is establishing in the interview process the simplest standard that we have for the company. Showing up on time, respect with different interviewers and different times, so flexibility, and work attire, if that's an issue for the company or a standard for the company.
Absolutely. As everyone knows from life, it's relatively easy to make one good first impression.
Yeah.
But can you sustain your actual first impression over multiple meetings with multiple people at different times?
Yep.
And all that's going to do is give you a better sense of who you're dealing with.
Yep.
And that's why I want to do it that way.
Because past behavior is the best predictor of future success.
Absolutely. And it really, what it does by taking 2 or 3 or 4 interviews, which take about a week or several weeks even to get the discovery process completed, what's going to happen is that the job itself seems to be more valuable to the candidate themselves. So as the candidate is interviewing with you, it's likely the candidate might be interviewing with other people.
Yeah.
So you're sort of in competition for your A players. The fact that your job is not really easy to get, but is somewhat challenging to get, and you've got to go through an interview process and impress multiple people, raises the value of the job. The job's more important. This is a hard job to get. It really should be a challenging job to get because your work's important.
Yep.
And so for that reason, multiple interviews raise the specter of the job to the candidate going, I really want to get this job. It lets them get a good look at you.
Yeah. And the people you want, the true achievers, the people who are going to stick with your company and can turn a career out of it, are definitely interviewing with multiple other companies.
That's right.
So you have to show, what do you offer? Do you offer, an incentive structure? Do you offer 3 different interviewers with top-notch interviewing skills that really set the tone for, if you want to work here, we'll make you part of the team. We talked about in the first season as well, the inner circle. The interview process should be so professional, structured, vetted that by the time you actually get the job, you feel like you're part of the team, the inner circle, the leadership. So that way everyone on staff feels like they have a responsibility to the success of the company. What
you're describing there, Ken, is a real win-win experience. So I'm as the interviewer trying to find the right teammate. So I'm looking carefully for what's a match for me. Well, meanwhile, the candidate can take a look at 3 different people within the organization, look at the organization in 3 different times, and they can determine, is this a win-win for them as well?
Yeah.
And that relationship where a winning formula for a staff member who finds an organization they can really engage with and is a fit for their skills, the company finds a win in a teammate who's got the right skills and the right passion and the right commitment level. That's a perfect environment for a long-term relationship that's really going to serve both parties well.
Yeah. And people hearing this, I'm sure, are thinking, this sounds exhausting. I don't have time for this. I can't interview all the time. This is way more work than I thought it was going to be. And I would just like to say, first off, how important. I mean, we could we do this in almost all of our classes. We show the cost of a bad hire or the money that is drained by your other employees spending time training someone who doesn't work out, the resources, the physical resources, if you have to give them, uniform or free stuff, which almost always happens. There's a sunk cost there with a bad hire that gets exponential if you have a couple of them throughout a year, which most people do. And so what I'm saying is the net effect of having a great team full of achievers who have the company's interest in their pocket is one hand. On the other hand, what is the net effect of having a team of people all interviewing all the time? You probably get pretty damn good at hiring.
You do.
You probably get interviewing skills.
Well, what happens is, and you just in the most specific way I can say this, in terms of actual payroll costs, training costs, and possible poor performance costs in lost sales.
Yep.
I think we've calculated that in an average retail store, a bad hire can cost you $4,000 or $5,000 in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Now multiply that by several months, and you've got tens of thousands of dollars in lost revenue by hiring the wrong person. So weigh that against this exhaustive sort of complicated sales process we're talking about. And when you when you interview someone 2 or 3 times, and at the end of the interview process go, nope, this person's not a fit for us. Don't feel like you wasted your time conducting this interview process. Feel like you saved yourself $30,000.
Yeah.
You just made money in law and saving yourselves from a bad hire.
Wow, I'm glad I didn't hire them.
And whatever you may feel you lost in time, you gained in lost revenue. So it's time well spent. I want to address one other, and I'm not sure about our time here. Looks like we're doing okay.
Yeah, we're doing good.
I want to address one other area you referred to a moment ago, Kent, in the interview itself. That is a common mistake that interviewers make, and that is they interview for listening to philosophy statements.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask, what do you ask these people when you get them in front of you?
Yeah, so what we do is we tend to make a mistake of asking questions that don't give us meaningful answers, and those are philosophy statements or philosophy questions. For example, it would be, Kent, what kind of a team do you best thrive in?
Oh, I thrive in a team that talks, communicates, works well, challenges each other. Yeah, I find that being on a team is really good, and also I work really well on a team.
Kent, what kind of a boss is an ideal boss for you?
A boss that listens to me, that is part of the team. You know, I can shadow him at any time, ask for tips. Also, I'm paid well, and I have all the resources I need to be the employee of the month.
So as you listen to that little exchange, know that none of that is of any value to you, because your candidate is describing what philosophy they believe or what they think. None of that tells you what they would be like in a real-life situation.
Yeah.
So you can't ask those questions. You have to phrase the questions around past performance. Give me, Kent, an example of a day in which you were on a great team. Tell me what that team did and your contribution to it. So now you've got to go into your memory bank and come up with something specific that happened that describes you on a team. Tell me about your favorite boss. His name was Randy. Well, tell me what Randy did with you that made him a great boss. These were some of the things Randy did. No, give me a specific thing that Randy did. Tell me about that thing. So past performance is the best predictor of future performance. And so I need to hear about your past performance, the way you behaved, the way you talked, the things you did. And in hearing that, I have a better chance of determining what you'd be like working for me.
Yeah. And if I can get you, if I'm interviewing, if I can get you to talk for a full, let's say you take on the long end, an hour interview with this person. If I can get you to talk for the majority of that time, I'm getting within an hour conversation, I can see how you're going to build rapport with a customer, how you're going to build rapport with your teammates. What are you going to be like at the end of a long conversation, or how do you articulate things? And how do you respond to questions of specifics like that? What happened yesterday with that customer? What time did you come in? Are you paying attention? Are these things important to you? And so it becomes this, the example we use is the Sherlock Holmes type investigation, where I'm talking in specifics. I'm talking of accountability, of details. Yeah, give me details. Give me information, because that's what a company communication is all about. I communicate that way because I have specifics, because I care about details. I'm timely. I'm conscientious.
Well, it's for many folks sitting on that end, the receiving end of that interview, it may be the first time they've interviewed this way.
Yeah.
It would be a new way of talking, probably a very refreshing and authentic way of talking, and again, beginning to build that win-win relationship.
Definitely.
As we wrap this up, Kent, there's one other big mistake that I think that folks make when it comes to hiring, and that is they're not clear about what they're looking for. And by that I mean they're not really exactly sure whether they've got a winner or not a winner. They just talk without a focus or a target for their interview.
Every minute, I like this guy. Ooh, I didn't like that answer that much. Oh, he came back with that one. Actually, I kind of like this guy now. Oh, I don't know about that answer.
So you don't make a hiring decision in the interview itself. You've got to step away to make your decision. But there are 3 areas of focus for the interview that you must consider. And if you equally consider these 3 areas, you're probably going to have a better chance of finding the right person. The first of those 3 areas is the people skills. Does this person you're interviewing have the people skills to succeed on a team? Are they a good listener? Are they a good communicator? Are they curious?
Yeah.
Are they empathetic? Those are the people skills that will make a big difference. Secondly, does this person have the technical skills for the job? So whatever you're hiring them for, that's where you mentioned being an enthusiast. They have some understanding if they're in the running business. They have an understanding of the biomechanics associated with this, or if it's a fishing job, they have some technical skills associated. So they have the technical skills for the job.
Some credibility.
So, some credibility there, right. So those two pieces are very important. And the third, and this is often overlooked, does this person have a history of commitment? Will they make a commitment to the job? Are they able to make a commitment to learn, the commitment to work, the commitment to come to work on time?
Yeah.
So these are three equally important areas. I've hired people that had great technical skills, great people skills, but without the ability to commit, they were just a frustration.
Right.
I've hired people that knew how to commit, had good technical skills, but no people skills.
Yeah.
They're great at the skill I hired them for, and really knew how to commit, but couldn't work on a team.
Yeah.
So it requires all three of these. And so as you begin your interviewing process, be clear about what you're looking for so that when you're sitting across from that candidate, you see it, you recognize it, and you know that all three of those are present.
Yep. And then shape your questions. Don't just Google stock image interview questions and then have a list of 10. Come up with your own. What makes your company unique, and then ask questions towards that goal. So have a goal in mind. Talk with the other people who are going to be interviewing. If it's one other person, two other people, if you have enough for that, then run it by them and make sure it's succinct with the company's vision for where you want to go and what you want your people.
So this really wraps up to remind us that if you are hiring out of desperation, you're going to be reluctant to follow this process. Yeah. You're going to be in a hurry. You're trying to get them hired. You're stressed. You're rushing the process, and as a result, we all know, when you rush something, you end up with less than stellar results. So, break the cycle of hiring out of desperation or hiring only on need. You can take your time if you're looking for A players, even when you have a staff full, knowing that you need A players, and you can now say goodbye and create a higher expectation for your C and D players by hiring A players and then being able to make changes.
Yep.
Reduce the hours you give to your poor performers and bring in an A player that you can invest in. And systematically over time, you can find a team of A players who want to learn, who want to get better, and are giving your customers the very best experience that you have always hoped for.
Yeah, and they're not just bodies. You don't just hire for bodies. You've got you hire for traits, specific character traits that can be developed.
People skills, technical skills, and the ability to commit.
Yep. All right, awesome. I think we hit it pretty hard today. So thanks for sticking with us, guys. I'm not sure how long that ended up being, but there was a lot of good content in there. As always, if you have any questions, any concerns, feel free to shoot us an email. We love answering questions like this. But this is a tricky one. It's always different. I know we mentioned a couple industries: run, outdoor, bike, fishing. If you're outside of that realm and still feel like you need some more guidance with what to look for, we do a lot of work outside of that realm as well.
Well, listen, if you're in the end of the podcast club,
yeah.
And by the way, we're hearing quite a bit of that, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
We've got some nice documentation on everything we just said. So if you'd like a written version of some of these things, we'll be happy to send those to you with an email request. We'll send you some of these concepts in written form that you can then begin implementing yourself.
Definitely. All right. Appreciate your return, Dan. It's been too long.
I'm glad to be back, and hopefully you'll invite me again occasionally or quarterly or monthly.
Maybe once in a while, maybe if there's some requests out there. But all right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. That's it for this episode. If you like what you hear, subscribe and leave a review on our iTunes channel. We'll see you next week.